It's wonderful to be here again. I was very sad when I moved on to the opera school that we really couldn't continue working with big new operas, but did. We did some collaborations. We did 2 short operas, and so I was here for 5 years ago. And what we also did was that we started a collaboration with UCT and exchanging teachers, etc. So we still are in partnership, so to say, and hopefully we will continue. So I'm so glad to be here. But now I'm at Riksteatern, and I will talk a little about Riksteatern first, because the National Touring Theatre in Sweden has a very unique, I think, background, how it all started. And then, in the end, I will talk a little more about how to tour and use new technique today. Because we are developing, because our problem is to tour with big opera, as everywhere. Of course, we have done with smaller ensembles, but now we are on our way to do big-scale opera with orchestra, with new technique. Not new technique, but how to use fiber. I will talk about that. But first, a little background about Riksteatern, because it's all started quite early in the 30s. Now we see it's small text, I can read it for you. But this was all, Sweden, this 85 years ago, was quite a poor country, financially, but also culturally. Of course, we had the big cities. We had the Dramaten, we had the Royal Opera, and we had these 3 big cities. They had a lot of theatre. But on the countryside, it was not that good at all. And then a guy called Albert Engberg, he figured out how can we spread out more culture, performing arts around Sweden. And so he said, it's not only the capital's population has a legitimate claim to first-rate performing arts, the entire nation have the same rights. Because during this time, the idea of Sweden was to educate and make more culture, but also education. It was called the Swedish model, and it went very successful. And Riksteatern was a part of it all. And of course, how do you do that? Of course, one way is that you go and build small theaters, but the venues were there. Many cities have small venues. You can bring ensembles, etc. But the idea was, no, let's go another way. So what he said was that we start with local audience organizations, because what we need is audience. And of course, we have good art in the big cities, but we need to tour. But somebody in the small cities need to organize us to come, organize an audience to come, but organize also the venue. So what they did was that they announced in the papers, are you interested in building local audience organizations? And so it all started. And of course not, because, people movement is very, the social democrats, it says all these people movements that you have was very strong during that time. So the idea was also to copy a party like the social democrats, but do it in art. So they announced in the papers and say, are you interested? Please come, we will be in this city, blah, 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 and we will help you to organize. So they started, and it was mostly, and still is, volunteers, non-profit, no salaries, that organize, and they get money from the local city to arrange theatre. So today, Riksteatern, after 85 years, is called the Swedish National Touring Theatre, and is still an ID-based organization. And we have over 40,000 members. And as a member, you get a card and you get a cheaper ticket to all the venues around Sweden. But you're also a member of this association, Riksteatern. And today we have 21 regional associations and 230 local associations. And it's volunteer-based. And my position is at the national level, Because at the national level, we are the professionals, we are making the theater, we're doing the productions, and then we tour them. But these local associations, they can buy whatever they like. They have the money, they buy our productions, but they can also go to the freelancers or the regional theaters or Dramaten if they tour, but mostly they tour with us. And today we have the same status as the Royal Opera. So we are 3 national theaters in Sweden. It's the Royal Opera and Dramaten. I wrote it Dramaten, you know, the Ingmar Bergman theater, the Royal Drama Theater. It's also a national theater, but we are the touring company. And as a start, the Riksteatern didn't do their own productions. It was mostly Dramaten and the Royal Opera that was on tour. And there's a very good story when Ingmar Bergman was at the Dramaten, because it was very tricky to how to tour with the productions that were on stage at Dramaten. So he closed the Dramaten for 4 weeks, and then he sent out all the productions, and then it was over. And of course that was not really good. So then Riksteatern also started creating our own pieces, our own productions, quite early in the 50s and the 60s. Yeah, we are owned by the local members and funded by the Swedish government. And we have a congress every 4th year, making decisions. So after Congress, I have 95 decisions making from this Congress and the letter of intent from the government. And this is the thing that runs the company. And I'm running the national part, and it's about 200 employees. So our goal is to produce. We produce, but we also today do it in collaborations with many different other theaters and production companies, but we also do our own productions. And I'll give you some figures. And arrange, that's really, really important, because that's what the local associations do. They arrange and they take these productions from us and other companies. So, of course, that's very important to also, because they are not paid people. And of course, we need to help them with marketing, and we have websites, and we have all this structure helping them out to reach out and find audience. So what we do is about 25 to 30, sometimes 40 productions per year. And we do this, last year we did 3,400 performances around Sweden. So it's quite a lot. And we reach about 250 with our productions around Sweden. 450 is if you also count in the productions that the local organizations take from other companies. So it's in total 450. Yes, and each production reached out about 25, 45 performances. But you know, in the early 60s it was about 100, and we did so much during these days. Big scale opera and big scale theater and Dramaten and everything, touring, and also small scale to the small venues. But of course today it's getting more expensive to tour and all that, so we had to scale it down and do it a little in another way and find new solutions to tour big production, and that's what I'm coming up to quite soon. And we also have a department for children and youth, and we have the Cullberg Ballet, an ensemble of 18 dancers. They are mostly on tour out abroad, in Europe and also in the States and Asia, etc. And we also have the sign language theater group, managed by a sign language deaf person, Minder Drapsa, and together with another girl, is running that, and an ensemble. So reach out also is very important in different languages, because sign language is a language. So they tour about, and they do about 3-4 productions per year. But, of course, as I said, to reach out is today, of course, hard, because it's so much for an audience to do. So also to reach an audience, if you have a classic piece, you have to work quite hard with the market and public or audience building, etc. All these things that we are aware of everywhere you go. But also what we have seen during the year is that some performing art, we don't tour anymore, like opera. Because we can, of course, do a small-scale opera with a small ensemble, and we have done that successfully. And we have also done big-scale opera together with the regional orchestras around Sweden, but then we maybe do 10 performances. So we try to figure out how can we now start reaching out also to venues without a pit and a small-scale venue. But you know, opera is so much the total about orchestra and singing and together. That's opera for me. And why shouldn't we bring it, the full-scale productions, even to small cities? Because the small cities today, here I have some. Yeah, the small cities today, they already see big-scale opera from Metropolitan. I saw Follies from English National Theatre recently. So they are used to these big productions, and when we come and say, oh, when I heard this wonderful opera from the Metropolitan, it was so strong with the orchestra, and why don't they sing, why don't they sing much louder, and where is the orchestra? I want a big thing now. So that's very successful, and I guess that you also have possibilities here to see the Metropolitan operas. In Sweden, we also do now more and more theater, Swedish theater, and I will come back to that as well. So, of course, we have all this, and how can we deal with our production? Because this is not really live. This is just, I think they have 2,600 cinemas in 63 countries. In Sweden, we have 100 cinemas, and we reach 120,000 people. And that's quite a lot. But, of course, we can reach out much more with this, because we're also involved in this. But it's not that what I'm going to talk about mostly today, because this is also how we will broadcast our productions. But, of course, when we are touring, it's not that we are supposed to start filming everything and send it to the cinemas. We still need to tour. And I'm interested in the live art. But of course, for the Royal Opera and Dramaten, it's great for them to send big-scale productions on the cinema screen, live. But it's still on a screen. This has meant that the digital performances has meant that the interest of opera has really increased. I talked to Birgitta Svendén, who is the artistic director of the Royal Opera, and she said, every year now is full houses, full houses. I think that because of that we are sending our productions and we have the Metropolitan production, the interest has really increased for the art of opera. Yes. I think I would talk, so if you have questions, please keep them, and we will use the half an hour in the end, or 20 minutes when I'm ready with this to have some questions and discussions, please. So how to increase live opera to small cities with small venues together with live orchestra? And what do you need? Of course you need a good production, you need skilled singers, and you need a nice conductor, because it's quite tricky to do this. Because the conductor is in one city, and the ensemble is the other city. Of course you can just turn off the mic when he starts screaming or she's screaming, but we need nice conductors interested in this. And you need technical equipment, patience, and, as I said, and this is not new technique, we all have it, but it's a little complicated. Is the fiber. You know, the Metropolitan is via the satellite, but to get no delay you need fiber, and of course that needs to be not abroad yet, but it will be in the future, they say, to make this happen. And I think I'm not sure that they have the Bregenz Festival. Have you heard about the Bregenz Festival, where they have the big outdoor stage? They have the orchestra. I think you have been there, Michael. The orchestra in town, but it's just maybe 1 or 2 kilometers. Now we're talking about hundreds of kilometers. and no delay. So the orchestra in concert hall and ensemble on tour with no delay. That's what we're now going to do already in April. We have tried to find the right way and had done a lot of research and tryouts. And finally we think now we can do it. But there are some difficulties that I will talk about. Even though in Sweden, the land of internet, etc., we have difficulties with the internet and who owns the fiber, and how, because you need a clear fiber, no other traffic on the fiber. And there's so many companies that owns this, so you have to deal with that. So that's very tricky, and I guess that can also be very tricky here. But in the future, we will all have fiber, and we can use it. And there is fiber here, I know that. So what we do here is, do you see this? And now it's little technical terms that you don't, but this is quite easy. It's that we have the orchestra in the home venue, in the orchestra hall with the acoustic and everything, and we have the singers in another venue. And then we have all these monitors and cameras and Nimbras. The Nimbra is a box that takes all the information and make it possible to see on screens, because it's so important that the conductor have the same feeling as he is here working with the ensemble. And how do you deal with that? So that's the most tricky thing. It's not a delay. It's the feeling must be the same, so they can hear the breath of the singer. Because of course you can have recorded orchestra, I've seen that, but then the singers just need to do what they did in the right tempo. Here they need to find the atmosphere as it is, like here with a pit. So that's, and then this fiber connection needs to be 10 Gbps, very good. I have not really a clue what it all means, but it's from the technical side. Maybe you know. And the singers, they need head mix, and they need also to see the conductor in different ways, of course. So these are from my technical manager who runs this project. It's a fiber connection, no other traffic, virtual orchestra mixed down makes singers happy and audience. It's about the cameras, it's about the hand mix, and it's about how you also individual miking the orchestra, so you can hear all instruments and make a good sound of it all. But this is very much more into details, but it's there. And of course, what we come to now is that for the moment we need about 4 technicians in each place, and that's quite a lot. But I think in the future, absolutely, this can be run more easily if we learn and practice for a while now. Because this project that we are doing for the moment is so much interest, not only from Cape Town, in Europe. You know, the Royal Opera, in 3 years' time, they will close for 2 or 3 years to renovate the whole opera. And they say, how can we, and then of course call us and say, yeah, let's make a tour. Well, 100 people is the whole budget for us if we tour the Royal Opera. We need to find another way. And we have orchestras, and you have your orchestra. Maybe this can be the solution. And in about 3-4 years' time, the technique will be there, and we can really do it. 2 small places. And this is the singers' venue. You see the same thing. This is a lot of, if you're interested in what we have in technique, but also we need technicians there. I can send you all this if you want. If you're interested, I can send you the PowerPoint and you can read. And we have much more also information if you need and want that. We will gladly help you with that. So here is how it looks, because we now do this together with the University College of Opera in Stockholm, singers. They are very interesting because this is the future. in one way also, to learn, to sing with an orchestra maybe somewhere else. And we have also the Fox Opera in Stockholm. I used to work there. We never used the pit. We have the orchestra in behind, sometimes down, and you need to hear and you need to follow the conductor. And maybe I'm sure that the Cape Town Opera also and other opera companies are aware of difficulties, but they need to practice and learn. So when I called the opera school, said, hello, he's your former vice chancellor here, can we do this project together? And I said, yeah, this is perfect. Our singers need to, because what this means is that possibilities of doing opera more and distribute it easily will give them more chance for work. Opera is so, big in Sweden and Europe, and of course, if we can handle this, it will give a lot of new opportunities for young singers or singers to do productions and do it together with a local orchestra or the regional orchestra or whatever, another orchestra. And also for the orchestras, I would say, because they are struggling in Sweden, as everywhere. In the States, the big orchestra, symphony orchestras, it's a traditional, old music and where to find the audience. They need also to be aware of finding new ways of using their capacities. So this is just a picture where the orchestra is, and on that screen, of course, they will see, and the conductor will see the performance. So I have maybe one more question, just the camera. But in 1 month's time, we will do it all together for the first time, and then I can send you a lot of pictures how we do with all the monitors, because we have not really done that yet. But it all works. It's not a problem, and the young singers, they just love it. So this is, as I said, a collaboration between a regional orchestra in Jönköping, a small city, and the University College of Opera and Riksteatern. Yes, possible developments. A challenge, the big gap between stage and audience is a challenge, and big opera into chamber opera concept. Maybe next. Here is a challenge. Sorry, that was the wrong picture. As I said, it is to create an experience as the orchestra is live. That's the main target and the main thing to really do. And of course, you need good technique with this. And the orchestra should, what they do now in this production is that because also for the audience, it's wonderful when you see the orchestra. It's wonderful when you see the conductor. How do you see them? And of course, they will work on screens, and the orchestra will be a part. So the audience can see the orchestra, not the whole time, but in different occasions during the performance. So that's also something. And you can also film when you see a concert on television, you can see the orchestra members, etc. You can do whatever you like. Of course, it all depends on money and how much cameras you have. But what we also will do, not this time, but maybe next time, is that you can also, as an audience, go to the orchestra venue where they have the orchestra on stage and see the performance on a screen. So they can go there as well. So you have double. And of course, then you need to have a very good production where you're filming. But you need that for the orchestra so they can see the singers and feel the singers in the auditorium. As I said, the technical costs are quite high to have all these technicians. But then you need to compare that to bring in a big orchestra, 25, 40 people on tour. Of course, that will cost a lot as well. So comparing to that, 8 technicians might be under technique. But technique, goes just down in cost, so it's not that expensive, the technique. And the fiber is quite complicated. So that's something, if you're interested in this, to find the right open fibers that are existing in Sweden. But in Sweden, we have about 50, 70 different companies. And some say, okay, yeah, you can use that for 2 weeks. Give us 20,000. So we said no. So what we now have tried to do, because there are what is that name with the traffic, blah, 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 governmental run big institutions, they have fiber. So we asked the government to say, can't we make a solution where also we can use the fiber that you has invested in, like a culture net so we can spread out the culture via this fiber. And they are interested in, especially when they have given us more money to develop digital performances to spread out. So we said that, okay, let's use this much more. So that's the challenges. Let's see what we have. That's my last. As I said, thanks. But we wait with that, so we stay with that. So this is the project that we are now dealing with. And as I said, it's so much interest around the world, in Europe and different campuses. Is this a possibility for us to spread and do more opera live in small venues? And I think it is. And of course now we're developing it in Sweden, and that's great. But we are also interested in, and was so glad when I met Michael and said, why don't you come please and tell us about this? Because fiber will be in the ground everywhere, I think, in the future. And you can use it, and this is a possibility. So we will also, when we do the production now in April, we will invite a lot of opera people or orchestra, because opera is one thing, but you can also use this as a concert or a dance performance together with the orchestra. You can do so much, or a sing-along concert, or you can do whatever. The good thing is that it's not in your home, it's still in the venue. And you bring people there, hopefully, to see something that they before needed to go to the big cities. They can have it live in their own small venue.